Welcome back to the CNH Rugby Podcast with myself, CNH, and I'm glad you guys all enjoyed the last episode on the top 14 predictions. I've gotten a good few views, more than I thought, for a first episode, and the majority of people who did listen to it in full, I know it was quite long, but fair play if you managed to get through the full hour and a bit, because it was admittedly quite long. This one won't be as long, but you guys were happy with the tone I was using, and I gave a good in-depth analysis, and I knew my stuff, so I was absolutely overwhelmed with the positivity coming from it, and you guys DMing me on Instagram just saying how good it was to finally listen to it. The much anticipated thing. I've been saying it for nearly over a year now about how I would do YouTube, do a podcast, do episodes on rugby, and I'm glad you guys enjoyed it because it wasn't as easy to make, certainly because I lost my voice after a while, you may have heard, but glad you guys enjoyed it. This one is going to be a lot shorter because it's not as there's not as much content in it, and I'm gonna try and set a certain time as to how long each recording should be. So today I'm going to be talking about round one of the Rugby Championship. So if you weren't watching, the first round of the Rugby Championship happened. We had the second round of the Bledisloe Cup, New Zealand against Australia, in which New Zealand ran out as fairly worthy winners, 57-22, without too much hassle in most of the game. And then the second match, South Africa versus Argentina, later that day, South Africa won easily enough, even though Argentina, like Australia, had their moments in the match. So I'm just going to be going into a bit more detail because I did watch the New Zealand-Australia match, got up quite early for that. And I didn't get to see the Argentina and South Africa one live, but I did watch some of it on YouTube, only the main bits and the highlights, the ones worth noting. And I did get a bit of feedback from people who did watch it. So, thanks to them for it, because I could talk about that much as well. But as I said, I didn't watch the full match, so apologize if I do go over things that are worth mentioning, because I only watched some of it, the highlights and Super Rugby mainly, and I think someone uploaded the full match, but it was 2 hours video, so I'm not gonna watch that. So let's start off with New Zealand Australia, go in chronological order. I did see the Ria Kiwani. I turned it on early enough to see the Ria Kiwani try, the first interception pass. That was a pretty good try, on their behalf. The Severis try, and it was Richie Wonga. I mean, that's three interception tries by New Zealand in the last two matches against Australia. So that's something they're going to have to look out for. Australia, I think it's either like Tate McDermott and Tom Banks that, they make the wide pass out to the wingers, and, they need to be careful of that. It's because it's quite slow, and it's just very easily intercepted. They need to be watching the defence as well as who they're passing to, because, all it takes is them to get their hands on it and they're off, As two senses, they've got wheels. A great way of putting it. They're speedsters. They'll just get away from it, and there's absolutely no stopping it once it's intercepted. So, yeah. But then Australia did hit back quite early on. They had a brilliant attacking phase, which led to Andrew Kellaway's first try. Cora Betty was hard to bring down for the New Zealand pack as he stepped in and out of tackles, and I think the Kellaway try was a very good one. They just passed it and he ran it. They passed that one out wide, admittedly, but they were much slower and they were much more organised when doing so. And Kellaway just managed to run it in, and it gave some hope to Australia, that they might put this thing back within scoring distance, and it did. Fortunately, though, I think was it Lola Seo missed it, which is like a brief hint to what happened last week with the friendly match, the Bledisloe round one, where he lost it really. He had so many kicks that should have been going over for him, but he missed them, and this one was no different. I was like, oh dear, not another one of these, where he's going to be missing for quite a bit of the day. Admittedly, he didn't. He got a few kicks later on, but we'll talk about that in a minute. The All Blacks maul was almost unstoppable in the first half, Rob. But Australia, to be fair to them, there were quite a few mauls they couldn't bring down, and if they did, they get penalised for offside or collapsing the maul illegally. But Rob Swain, I think it was for Australia, he managed to come through. It was quite impressive because it's one of the few times I've actually seen it where he legitimately broke it up. He came through the middle, he got to the ball carrier, and even though New Zealand thought he was just offside, the ref, he said, he's done it, he's done it completely the right way as it should be done, and I was quite impressed with that. It was one of the few times where I was like, okay, maybe this is a different Australia side we're seeing. They're coming out of their shell now. But the one thing, as I said, the one thing the Wallabies didn't get right was the offside. They were giving away a good few offsides against New Zealand in the first half. It was kind of an act of desperation, and yeah, it didn't help them, especially with the amount of penalties they were giving away. Um, and then so obviously we had the Andrew Kellaway try at the 80 minute, at the 8th minute, but the Aussies were, I thought, at one stage they were too quick and tried to catch them off guard. They had a penalty instead of maybe kicking it for touch or something. They tapped and went and started running it up to the left half of the field. They were coming close to New Zealand's 10, but then they just lost the ball, and the All Blacks caught it, and then all they were doing was constantly offloading until it ended up in Brodie Retallick's hands, and he was just able to score. Very good try, may I add. I will admit, and that was one thing Australia got wrong, is they're just too quick with the things. Like, I think France, they don't play smart rugby. I think there are times when they do decisions, and they make me question, like, why would you do that? Like, they had that penalty, should have planned it out. Are we going to kick for a corner? Are we going to let Noah, go for three? Because although he wasn't kicking right, at least try to see if he can get this. But no, they decided to take it, tap and went, try to catch the All Blacks off guard, but you couldn't. They weren't off guard at all. It did look like it at first, but no, they were keeping their eyes on the Wallabies, and they were ready to pounce at them when they made a mistake, and wasn't even great. And the problem was with the turnovers. I suppose the Wallabies were they couldn't afford to get isolated even slightly, because even if one player made a breakthrough and ran down, the likes of David Havili, Kirawani, even Artie Savea, they were mauling it. They tackled, they got back up and sprung on their legs right into the player on the ground and just tried to counter ruck it, and either they turned it over or they gave away penalties, Australia. So, that is something they're really going to have to work on. It's not good, I've never seen it. It was debilitating, to say the least, for Australia, how many times it was happening, and it was like, it's the same old story. One player is getting isolated. The forwards are either too slow to run up to him to support him and ruck over, or they're not doing it fast enough. And New Zealand just take advantage of that every single time. Not just with Australia, other teams. I've seen it happen in Ireland so many times. One thing that did impress me, and it came from the player you most expected, Michael Hooper made a fantastic run down. I think, I have no idea, it had to have been like 50 meters or plus. He just got out of one tackle, got out of the other, and he stepped one person, and then he was about to be brought down, but I think he didn't fall down to, like, he wasn't like off his feet on the ground. He just stepped, adjusted himself, and kept going, and it was fantastic to see, because it just showed the potential that lies in Australia, particularly the likes of him and Valentini and Corbetty. They're heavy players who are hard to bring down. If they use them more often than their wingers, who are, getting isolated or getting the pass intercepted, that would be the best way for the Wallabies to, turn possession into points, really. Just use their heavy forwards, because even the likes of Valentini, when he was carrying, you can notice New Zealand were having a little more difficulty bringing him and Pangai and Mosa down. It's just, that's the truth. And it was a fantastic run by Michael Hooper, and it was representative of where the team is right now. He really is carrying them as a captain. I could not imagine someone else being captain apart from Michael. He's a great player overall, and even one of the few Waratahs who's impressed me in the last while, because they're going through a rough phase right now, just similar to Australia in general. But and he does have excellent captaincy. He speaks up for the team when he needs to, but he's not like Aaron Smith at the same time, always talking to the ref or always pointing out stuff here as if he's the ref. One thing that kind of annoys me about Aaron Smith, he's always like, hey, telling the ref, oh, he's done this, he's done that. Aren't we supposed to, and like, let the ref do his job, all right? Whether it's Michael Hooper, he'll only do it, and if he does do it, it is because there is something wrong or there is something seriously missed. He did it last week in the Bledisloe Cup, and it was like the forward pass, I believe it was, on that breakaway try, which was a brilliant try, but unfortunately didn't count because there was a forward pass, I think. Was it to Bowden, or I don't know, that's another game anyways that I haven't researched, don't need to either. The best 5 minutes of Australia were in the last half, where they kept going for the scrum. It was a huge shake-up, a huge smart play on their behalf. They realised that New Zealand's scrum are weak. They kept using the scrum even when they got the penalty and they're penalised. They kept going for the scrum because they're like, their scrum is weak. We're going to do this, possibly get a man in the bin on the All Blacks team and hopefully get a try. And they did. They got a try. It was a brilliant try by Tate McDermott, And it was just the best 5 minutes I've seen from the Wallabies all game. They were being really smart. The All Black scrum, which was solid up until that point, was visibly shaken. It was impressive. So then we move into the second half, and things start to really go south from here for the Wallabies. Admittedly, when they came out, they had a really strong attack, and at that stage, I believe the score was 22-15. I think I'm right in saying that, yeah. Or 21-15, my bad, to New Zealand. And they had 3 tries. Australia had 2, and it was close, similar to the last game. But Tate McDermott was stepping inside. Australia were offloading quite a bit, and they were looking really strong in the attack. They went for a good line out, I think, after in the 44th, 45 minutes, a strong line out. The thing about it is, the player who stepped up from the New Zealand team had to have been Richie Mo'unga. His kicking was really good. He was kicking tactically to Tom Banks, who he knew was not great for the catching, or wanting up him by kicking it, going for a Gary Owen or a high kick, as you call it. But he was putting in some huge tackles as well. He's not just a kicking out half; he can defend. He got a huge tackle, I think, on one of the Wallabies heavy forwards. I don't think it was Pangamosa. I'd have to check it, but he really was impressing me. And then obviously we saw that brilliant try. I think it was Cody Taylor who got it. Oh no, it was it might have been Cody Taylor or Will Jordan. It was where Aaron Smith was on the scrum. It was on the right side of the field, and he just saw the space. He dummied. I think he dummied Corbetty or Banks, one of the two, and he just offloaded it, and it was a brilliant try by New Zealand. Just classic New Zealand try where they dummied once with a bit of skill, and then just offloaded because there's always a man outside who's uncontested, who's free up, and just ran it in. It was really good. And then history obviously repeated itself with the interception try. He passed it out wide, and then Severis jumped at the chance. He ran it all the way in, and that was the game. The seal control, they were putting it without too much trouble, and Australia at that point were playing for pride. That was the moment it ended with that try. And may I just say, what an incredible kick it was from Damien McKenzie. I think it happened in the 52nd minute, and it was from 57, 58, I think 59 metres or around that about, so it was over the halfway line. I didn't think he was going to get it. I knew he was a good kick and fullback, but it was incredible, And it was kind of psychologically damaging to the Wallabies. Here we are, we have, our third man in line to take the kicks possibly even our fourth, because Mo'unga and the 2 Barretts, We're having this guy, he's going to take a penalty from way out, not just for points, but purely just to show off. And it was a bit sneaky, bit sly on the New Zealand behalf, to do something like that in front of the Wallabies, saying, oh, we're going to do this now because we can afford to. We're still winning this game, even if he doesn't get it, and it'll be impressive nonetheless, So, it was a bit cheeky by them, and I wonder will it be as cute when they're facing South Africa. That was it, obviously, with the Severis try in the 62nd. It was the 53rd minute, and right after the kick, that put it out of, it was over as a contest, really. That's the point. And the rucking ability caused headaches for the All Blacks. New Zealand, as I said before, the moment that there's space to go through the middle, they just jump at the chance, and they'll get Australia to concede a penalty, or they'll have a good turnover in a very good spot. And then obviously with the last few tries, with the Will Jordan one and the David Havili, they're always able to find the space. Admittedly, to Australia in the final stage of the game, they didn't give up. Even when New Zealand had the game won and over by that point, even at bonus point, they said, you know what, we're going to still try. We're going to still go for it. Because even if they got the try, I don't think it would stop. Because in New Zealand or down south, isn't it 3 tries more than your opponent results in a bonus point, not 4 tries scoring in general? So, they're playing for pride, and they didn't give up. They weren't going to call quits. So I do respect them in some ways for that. But they gave away. They turned it over, and then David Havili got it. One player did impress me was, and he's been getting a bit of stick as to why he's even playing on the team, but I kind of think there's potential in him, is Tom Banks. He's better ability, able to spin it out wide, His kicks are getting better, like high kicks, and I think he can definitely improve on that. And obviously, at that point, 57-22 final score. It was a record score for New Zealand. So I suppose congrats in that sense. That it's the highest score they've ever got against Australia, and it came at Eden Park. And then final note for the game. It's nothing to do with the game, but one thing that I will say is the crowd was pretty poor. Not really sure what's going on there. I think Two Cents mentioned it's just because they're not used to having two games at Eden Park in a week. But sure, that's no excuse. You're one of the biggest rugby nations in the world. It's your main sport. Why is there such a small crowd at the game? Like now, I don't think it was because of the COVID situation yet, because the case hadn't been identified. I know they're in a lockdown right now, and they will have no fans in for the game, or possibly the game might not even be played in New Zealand. I have no idea what's going to go on there, but yeah, it was just a bit poor to see the crowd. Considering last week was only a friendly, this was the actual first round of the competition. I thought there would be just as much, but no, it was a poor enough crowd. Uh, so where can both teams improve? So the Wallabies, as I said, they need to use their heavy carrying forwards rather than passing it out wide to the backs, such as Banks and Kellaway. Even though Kellaway did get two nice tries, they still keep letting interceptions happen, especially against New Zealand, and they're still getting bullied and isolated out there, where New Zealand just turn it over or get a penalty from it. And they should know with New Zealand now at this point that anytime they get a penalty in their half, they're going for a try. They're not going to go for three. Mackenzie was the huge exception. Obviously, they went for three there just to show off or flex, I think. But no, they'll always be kicking to go for a try, so they have to be ready. One thing they should employ, and this is just a general opinion by me, is what I call the non-contestable line-out throw. And that's where if New Zealand had a line-out throw, they let, I don't know, Ritalik jump up for it. Australia shouldn't try and intercept it because it's not working for them. They should have everyone on the ground ready to just completely charge into them and not allow New Zealand to get a huge line-out maul. Just charge them back so that they can even gain space rather than New Zealand stepping into their territory. So that's something they could try and employ. I'd be curious because it worked against I think Leicester used it last season against Connacht in the Challenge Cup, and it was impressive. I thought it was just brilliance on Steve Borthwick's behalf because, not contested on the line. Let's just be ready to absolutely charge them back because they'll be taken by surprise by it, and they might even be shocked to the point where they're not concentrating. Just wow, this was our line. How are we so far back now? We've lost territory on it. So that's what the Wallabies should do, and obviously, as I said, the last 5 minutes were the best. Play more of that type of rugby. Honestly, just play smart rugby. Think the decisions through. They didn't when they gave away that try. The Brody Ritalik try. They took it way too quick. Didn't even think about what they should be doing. And just play smarter rugby. Think it through. That's on Michael Hoop. That falls on Michael Hooper's shoulders. That's one area even he can improve on. Even though he made our team of the week, he was the most impressive player, along with Kellaway and Valentini on the Australia team. As for New Zealand, a result like that you don't really need improving on. But even still, in this game, in the last, still giving away a lot of offsides against Australia, which if they gave away against South Africa, that could be costly because they'll just go to Janchis or Morn Stein or even Hendrik Pollard and just take the 3 points, which clock up over time. That they're giving away a lot of offsides and. Just watch the penalty count. That's all I'll say for them. There's not really a whole lot they can improve on. I suppose their scrum looks shaken. Their scrum can be exploited, their weak front row line. That can definitely, bounce back against them. So that they have to watch that, if I'm being honest with you. Yes. But other than that, not a whole lot. And it was a good game. Though the scoreline might look like New Zealand dominated, but Australia had their moments. And I'm curious to know how, the next game against them will be. And it was a fairly contestable, interesting game. And I'm glad I got up as early as I did to watch it because it was it was worth watching, and I got a lot of information to make this. So that's the New Zealand Australia game. Not going to say too much more about it. What else? The Argentina and South Africa game. That's the second game in the of the weekend. Another game where it was a bit unusual because it wasn't like a hugely tightly contested game. It was clear that South Africa were always going to win, and they did. 32-12. See, I swear I've seen the score before. I really don't know where. Maybe let me know down in the comments below what match you may have seen 32-12 in, I don't think it was in any of Ireland's games, but could have possibly been in a South African game. This is just, I don't know. But anyways, the game served to show just why South Africa have been able to maintain their World Cup winning and Lions Tour winning ways. You know, they're right off the back of a Lions Tour that proved successful for them, albeit barely. And Argentina, on the other hand, hadn't seen rugby since the summer where they nearly lost to Romania, nearly drew against them. They were lucky that they managed to scrape a win. And they performed, last Rugby Championship, Tri Nations performed really well, you know, beating New Zealand for the first time ever, drew with Australia. And there was an outside chance they could have won it, which is more than can be said for them in the last few seasons. You know, the one thing that disappointed me about Argentina, a few people brought this up, was they were going for the corner. No, they weren't going for the corner. That's the problem. They were going straight to Nico Sanchez's boot, and while he does have a cannon of a right boot just to slot it over, it was a bit disappointing because there were a few times where they could have kicked to go for the corner for tries. I know their first line-out was lost, and that's wasn't good, you know. But Julian Montoya, eventually we saw a few line-outs from him. Like, why would you not kick him for the corner and maul it, you know? Or even not maul it, but just kick for the corner line-out and use your back line, which is one of the best in the world, you know, with Santiago Chacobeos and De La Fuente. And even maybe Nico Sanchez hook up with them, you know, try something there. You know, they were relying too hard on their kicking ability, and you know, they should have known from last. Now, they were probably under the impression that South Africa would do the same, and they could probably outscore them with the boot with Nico Sanchez. But this was a completely different South Africa side. This was one that weren't afraid to attack deep in their territory and go for tries. Obviously, they did eventually go for a huge attacking phase, Argentina, but it was just poorly. It was poorly organized. It was too fast. Some players were moving faster than the others, and then Cobus Reinach managed to gather a loose ball and just absolutely run it down the field to get a first try in the 14th minute. I think it was clear that at that point, Argentina, combined with the failed lineout, were not going to be a huge attacking team this time, which was a shame because that is exactly what they are. They decided, you know what, every penalty chance we get, we're going to get Sanchez. We're going to use them wisely. We're not going to take a chance on it, which it was kind of boring, you know, on their behalf. So yeah, that was one of the main thing that let Argentina down. You know, they could have definitely used the bulk of their pack. You know, Montoya. Even when Levanini came on, I was pretty sure they were going to go for more lineouts. Didn't turn out to be the case. There were only 2 line breaks from Pumas. That's serious concern. Like, that is a huge low. And as I think 2 Cents pointed out, there were a lot of unforced errors on both sides, you know, and that kind of slowed down the pace of the game. And I was just watching, I was like, yeah, this isn't as enjoyable as the other game, you know. A second try, I'll go into it. Afela Fassi. I'm just going to call him Fassi. I'm not pronouncing that name because it's such a tongue twister. Jantis managed to get a brilliant cross kick over, and Fassi managed to gather up really well in the left-hand corner and get in the second try. The second try in 5 minutes, may I add you, you know. Obviously, at that point, it seemed like South Africa were going to never let their lead slip at that point. You know, they were attacking hard, and they were catching Argentina away with some easy crossfield kicks and sending up some decent tries. It was a really nice kick on Janti's behalf, and he performed admirably. You know, 5 penalties. One of the 3 tries converted. The other one was taken by Stein. He didn't get any of his. So he stepped up to the mark, and it was tough, you know, to leave him out of the team of the week. But Mo'unga was just that much more superior, which probably didn't touch on in the last game. But Mo'unga had one of his best games. He always does. You know, I've rarely seen an off day by him yet. Has yet to come, and I know even when he does, he can bounce right back. And yeah, but anyways, Jantis himself, you know, he had a pretty good game. We didn't see a whole lot of him on the Lions tour. We saw obviously Pollard and then Stein. So yeah, I was really impressed by him. And one of the other players that did impress me was Joseph Dweba, the hooker. He brought that physical prowess he has to step out of tackles and bounce people from that I saw at the Cheetahs. He was among the top try scorers in the Pro 14 season that got cancelled when he was playing with the Cheetahs. It was really impressive. And I hope we get to see more of him. Out of all the teams in the Rugby Championship, it's clear now that South Africa are building up some huge depths in the hookers. I mean, they have Mbonabi, They have Dweeba. Like they're building up a solid squad, and even a second team that could easily, put up a fight against some of the tier one nations. It's very clear that that's going to be the case. Even the front row line, like you have Stephen Kitchenov, Oxenche, really impressive players. And Francois Lowe, Lou De Jager, and Jasper Wies, another player, really impressed me both in the Lions tour and last week. It's clear that the Leicester Tigers, Borthwick's work with the Leicester Tigers is serving everyone well, Lavanini and him. So yeah, definitely very impressive game from the South Africa pack. Very dominant, never failed to impress me, and never failed to keep the Argentina pack coming second, in terms of physical dominance in the scrums and then the lineouts. A lot of knock-ons from the Pumas on their behalf, and it was quite messy play, and they will have to work on the scrummaging because their front row, for all their efforts, they lack experience against, as I said, a South Africa front row that really impresses me. That's the truth. One of the players that did impress me for the Pumas, he had an exceptional game despite the results or the scoreline, was Santiago Carreras. It was pure gladiator stuff, just seeing him go up and grab those balls, and a few times, as soon as not even when he had hit the ground. I know it's kind of illegal, but there'd be a South African player ready to charge him down, but he was unreal. He had no fear catching the massive high balls, and he was pretty good in the back line. In the backs, he was very fast, and he did himself have a good few high balls that he set up for Sanchez or Carrera or Chaco Barris or whoever. So yeah, I think one of the things that confused me was when they were 21-6 down. It was it was a sharp contrast to what Australia did in the last 5 minutes of the first half. Rather than go for the touch or go for a scrum, he went for the 3 points, and it would have put them within touching distance if they went for the line out and went for a try or even went for a scrum. No, he decided straight to go for 3 points, and even if he went for the try, they would have only been and converted it successfully. They'd only be 8 points out. It would be South Africa and Razzie could have been shocked. Wow. That was a bold decision on their behalf, similar to Australia, but they didn't. They went for they were too reliant on Sanchez, and I hope we can see next game that they become a bit more. They take their chances, and as I said, I've always said about the Pumas, poor discipline. Even though they didn't give away a few cards, they gave away plenty of penalties, too many. A lot of unforced errors, a lot of offsides, and and that was it. South Africa also gave away a few penalties for not releasing, although. In the first half, it may have been a problem. They knew after a while that Argentina were going to waste these opportunities, not going to be wise with them at all. And it was penalties that they could afford to give away. But any other team, especially New Zealand, it's going to be it'll be catastrophic if they were to do something like that. I also was happy with Hendricks' try, Jaden Hendricks. Huge redemption for him after he got sent off for the Sharks against the Lions. He wasn't a popular man that day. He got sent off, and I think it was a tight game between the Lions and Sharks. Lions ran away with it, got 70-odd points to finish the game, finishing the game off. And it all changed when Hendricks went off. But this try that he got, a very good try in his debut, it was pure redemption stuff, and I'm really happy that happened. So that's all I'll say about that game. Obviously, as I said, didn't really watch it, and only got so many notes from it. But I'm curious to know now what will happen in round 2 of the Rugby Championship. And I've given my thoughts on both games, where teams can improve, who were the players that stood out. Now I'm going to talk about my team of the week and my reasoning for putting each player down. I'm just going to go down through these. This team wasn't too hard, to decipher. There was a lot of positions where... we were fairly certain about what players we were going to choose. There were one or two that were up for debate. There was a few contenders for each from, 2 or 3 different teams. But other positions, particularly like in the front row and in the centres and the fullback, they were fairly dead on. We were, even before we decided to do this, I was confident as to who I was going to put in. So starting off in the front row, we have Oxenche, Cody Taylor and Francois Lowe. So Lowe and Inche for South Africa, like I said. Their front row is been really impressive both in the Lions tour and right now. They're a very solid pack and look like one of the best front row in the world. And I would have put Joseph Dweeb in, but I decided to go with Cody Taylor. I mean, he scored 2 tries, very consistent with the line out throws. Also, he made 4 or 5 different carries and a few tackles. Like he was just an all-around consistent hooker. And with the 2 tries, I couldn't not give it to him. Dweeb had a pretty good game, and Julian Montoya was an underrated one. Obviously missed the first line-out throw, but he was otherwise one of the few Pumas who were impressive on the day. So there were contenders to that, but I went with Taylor. And Inche and Lowe were fairly straightforward. So that's the front row. Then we have Brody Retallick, scored that amazing try against Australia, and he's an all-round good. I mean, he made 38 meters, he made 8 tackles, so he was really good, like defensively. He was going to be certain for me. And Lou De Jager, again, really consistent. He links up well with Etzebeth, and he was also very good. From what I've seen in the highlights in the game, very impressive player, and he's probably one of my underrated Springboks right now. One who, like, Etzebeth is obviously the most well known, like the second row who gets all the attention, who's well known to the average rugby fan. But we have to give Lou De Jager a bit more credit because I think he's just as good, And I'm curious to know if he will maintain that consistency in the lineout and as a heavy ball carrying forward in the weeks to come. So, and then the back line, this is a very interesting one. So, Akira Iwani, honestly, some of the stats he made, he did not disappoint me at all. I mean, he made 9 tackles, he made 8 different carries, he made 80 running meters. I mean, that is impressive for a back. He made that much, and he was able to beat a good few defenders as well. Like he was just an all round really consistent, consistent back rower, and I was massively impressive by what he was doing, and I'm curious now to see, will he continue that now against Australia and then against the other 2 teams now in the weeks to come, because he himself and the other one was Ria Kiwani. I know I'm trying to go in order of team sheet, but if I go to him, he made that brilliant interception try. And in terms of 13s, it wasn't hard to say that he was my, outside center. He's very consistent, and he's one that impressed me, not just for New Zealand, but I've always kind of liked the way he played in the Blues. That was a key factor in deciding that. But even just going off this performance alone, he didn't make that interception try, but he was fairly solid. He was fairly solid in the whole run of things, and I hope he gets more starts. Because he's one of the few Blues players that I really think who's really performing right now for not just the Blues but the All Blacks. Because a few do make the All Blacks, but they don't do just as well. So yeah, had to put him down. But anyways, going back to the back three. So Akira Iwani, his stats were incredible. He was just an all-round impressive player. Was going to make my man of the match, but I decided to go with David Havili for a different reason, which I'll get into in a minute. Michael Hooper, I mean, I couldn't not give it to him, like the other 2 in the pack, Artie Savea and Dalton Papalili. Papalili was underrated, but I had to give it to Hooper. I mean, he was carrying that team, not just in captaincy, but that incredible break he made. The one where he managed to step out of one tackle. It looked like he was brought down, but because he wasn't on his, he wasn't on the ground, he just got back up and kept charging down. And he's, I think I wouldn't have him any other way. Like, he has to be Australia's captain and one of the best I've seen in a while. He's an impressive player, very, very disciplined. I will say that, and he deserves to make this team sheet. One of the few Wallabies who does. So I had to give it to him, and yeah, if we take a look at his stats, he was fairly solid. He made 54 meters, most of that coming from that run. He made as 10 passes, meaning that he's unselfish, even though he does like to carry the ball into contact. He's not going to take it in charge. He was smart at times, and he's good at defending. Made 5 or 6 different tackles. So overall, very impressive player, Michael Hooper. I will give it to him. And then Jasper Wiese continuing that massive performance he did in the third Lions tour. As I said, just like Thomas Lavanini, what Borthwick must be doing with the pack, Leicester must be incredible, because he's also improved overall the South African. So yeah, I am like gonna keep an eye on him because the line store was like, oh yeah, good performance, but now this time I'm like, okay, that's twice now. He seems like a fairly solid player, and I'm gonna just keep my eye out for him. And so that's the entire pack. So Kobus Reinach, a lot of people calling for Aaron Smith, and yeah, I do agree. Aaron Smith, like he beat I think 4 or 5 different defenders. He was getting in and out of tackles, and then he set up that incredible try down the right wing. But I just like the way Kobus Reinach played. You know, he got the try, and he's fast with the passing out and getting to the breakdown and just moving it forward with the pack and passing it out to the back as well. Like I think he's tactical as a scrum half, and he's really fast. Honestly, one of like I really do like him as a scrum half. I know Faf de Klerk gets all the attention, but Ryanek is underrated at times, and I think de Klerk should be worried because in my books he's getting better. Maybe not as good as de Klerk just yet, but give it a few more, a season or two more, and we could see a really really good Copus Ryanek. In fact, actually, he's definitely one player to watch in this tournament. You know, he's if he gets more game time, that is. I know De Klerk will come back eventually, but yeah. So and in the line store, like really impressive. But even in this match, you know, it's really fast when you got that intercept try, and overall very consistent as a scrum half. Then I went with Richie Moonga. Uh, you know, like it was between himself. Nico Sanchez got those 4 penalties, one of the few, and he was like Carreras, he was fearless when going up for them high balls, and also Elton Janjis, as I said, he stepped up to the mark for you know he was getting most of his kicks. Obviously, he missed a few, but even still, the young lad, you know, he's coming up and he's nailing most of the conversions and the penalties, and he's kicking tactically down to the like unlike Argentina on the day he was kicking to the lines where he saw the lineouts. You know, they're going for tries. You know, yeah, I could kick penalties, but I know I have enough confidence in my lineout, in our team's lineout, that I'll kick downfield and give them in a good mauling position. So yeah, he's a smart out half as well, and he's not looking to. He's not in the limelight, but I had to give it to Richie Moanga. You know, he's so solid, honestly even during New Zealand's poor season, when they lost last season to Argentina and Australia, he was so consistent, even for the Crusaders. He's just incredible. Bone Barrett should be scared because I really do think Richie Wong is going to own that 10 jersey. I really do. I mean, obviously, he got that intercept try last week, I think it was, and very skillful ball carrying out half, but also he put in massive tackles against Australia. He was catching them off guard, and you could see the huge hits. Like from an out half, that is incredible. You know, he's a big tackler, and definitely deserved out half. I think. Yeah, Sanchez and Jantis played really well, but I had to give it to Richie Monga. Then I talked about Iwani, but David Havili. I mean, we're going to pull up some of his stats. He's like our man of the match, and it's not a once-off. You know, definitely this was definitely a man of the match performance he put in. You know, if we take a look here, like let's just have a look here. Like he made 64 meters. That's pretty good for. But he also made 8 different carries, put in 8 tackles. Like he's just and beat 3 defenders. Like he's just he just put in an incredible performance, I think, and like even though he didn't make any turnovers, he was definitely going in and rucking the correct way, you know, to get that ball and trying to steal it. I just think we have to watch David Avili more. I think he's really good, and I think he links up well with Iwani at the center, and he's yeah. Even I think for the Crusaders, like what he brings to the Crusaders, he brings to New Zealand. He's just a really good player overall. Up there with Akira Iwani, obviously as man of the match, I ended up choosing him just because he impressed me a bit more. He was really good defensively, and he caused headaches for Australia trying to ruck that ball over and making them concede penalties, along with Iwani and Savea and all them. So I had to give it to him. Well deserved and well earned place in our team. So now, finally, we move on to the back three, and I have Fassi. I'm not going to talk about Fassi as much. I've already given my opinion on him. He had an incredible game, and I was really happy to see that he got that try. Gathered it really well. Andrew Kellaway, despite the fact that the Wallabies didn't have a great performance himself, and Hooper made the team as the only 2 Wallabies, he got 2 tries, and not just for that, even the 2 tries, but if the All Blacks were breaking through, it was always generally on the Australia's left hand wing. Kellaway was fairly solid on his, and he rarely let them get through. And if it was just because he was unmanned, like he was putting in the tackles, he wasn't getting stepped or sidestepped or anything like that. He's solid enough, Callaway, and I think he can link up well with Banks in future matches to come. So he didn't. He even though like Will Jordan got that try, uh, I had to put him on the team. He's just him along with Hooper really impressed me for the Wallabies, and hope he, even though the result was pretty bad for them, I hope he does give another performance like that, as many other Wallaby players should be, because he has the potential to become a world class winger. I really do. It doesn't sound like much at all now. It might sound crazy. Just a strange prediction I had, like even just like Hooper when he was breaking through, or Valentini, you can see the potential that lies within, and it's just waiting to come out. And Kellaway is no exception to that. I really do think he has a lot more to offer. And if you take a closer look at that match, you'll know what I mean, rather than just those two tries. Like, it doesn't mean just because you get your name on the scoring sheet doesn't mean you earn a place on our team of the week. That's what I'm saying. Because I mean, if that's the case, where's Will Jordan? Where's uh, Jaden Hendricks? That's what I'm saying. Like, and Kellaway, just because he got those two tries doesn't mean he was brilliant defensively. And one of the few Wallabies who was really good defensively and solid enough that he rarely let himself get stepped by the wingers or anything like that, or even the centres like Ioane. It was generally over on the left wing with Cora Betty. But anyways, and the last and certainly not least, Santiago Carreras. As I said before, he was grabbing the high balls. He was doing it fearlessly, and it was enough, in my opinion, to make the team sheet. As well as that, he was quite disciplined. And admittedly, he did make the tackles, as a fullback, and he was, as a last line of defence, he was fairly solid. So had to give it to him. And it's not just to fill a quota, like putting like one Argentinian in the pack, because I don't do that. I don't do it just so that every team gets a mention. He genuinely did deserve to make this team of the week. He was one of the few really, like himself, and Montoya, as I said, was the other one really. Who really impressed me. Like, he made 10 carries, Carreras, as a fullback. Like, that's really good. He's generous with the passes, made about 8 or 9. And then I think he beat 3 or 4 defenders, so he was good at stepping in and out of the tackles. And it was a hard back to bring down. It was really fast. And that's something that I hope, the Argentinians can use to their advantage, along with, like, Shako Bears and really fast-paced wingers and backs. They definitely should use more of that. Which is just, a hint as to what I was saying earlier. They definitely should rely on us to go for tries rather than just going to Sanchez for the boot all the time, which I hope they use now in the future matches to come. But anyways, that's my team of the week, and that's going to be it. I don't want to make this any longer than it has to be, so I've given my opinion on both the matches and my team of the week, and I'm looking forward now. I think some of the squads have been named for the second round of the Rugby Championship, and if you don't, take a look at them. If not, they'll be on my Instagram in the next day or so, and you'll get to see if the squad's, like who's getting and run out, who's staying on the starting 15, and I'm pretty sure I'll release a post as to say which players you should keep an eye out for, such as Diego or Weiss or Kellaway, as to who could be a dark horse in this whole competition. So, anyways, that's going to be it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. These are fun to do. Obviously, the top 14 one did well. Hopefully, this one does. And I'll keep releasing them on many ideas, not just about current rugby matches and my opinion on them, but also about ideas and concepts. Like right now, if you don't know, we're doing the Club World Cup on our story votes, and even afterwards, I'm going to have a talk as to how this competition could work and giving my opinion as to whether it should happen or not. Also, there's tons of rugby ideas I'll be doing, so stay tuned for those. Give the video a like, even if you already knew most of the stuff. I really always appreciate the support, and be sure to subscribe, and if you do, I'll release more videos, and click the notification bell button so that you never miss a video. Thanks, guys. Take care.